And now they're in the situation as their country is a bankrupt society, and countries that have lost their manufacturing jobs, that's what happens to their country, because you have to have goods to sell, to ship, or to export, to be able to get revenue for that, and you grow your gross domestic product, and things get better for society. But when all that goes away and your jobs go to China, to Mexico, and there's nothing put in place by the government to say, hey, we need to stop this. We need to either have tariffs on these goods so we can keep some of the jobs in our country. But that's basically how it's been worn down. Now, we can get into, was this a conspired plan against us to grind us down, slowly bring us to our knees up until 2010, July 2nd, to where we continue forward to be grinded down. The reason why we don't jump off the boat and protest, riot, and get violent is because many people of the sheep, the mainstream media, believe what they're told, and they continue to go with it, even though, everyone that's listening to the show, ask yourself, how many friends and family do you know that are unemployed? I can guarantee you that if I have 10 friends, or at least half of them are unemployed. But we're told that things are getting better. Things are getting better. Remember, this is recovery summer. That's what the president said 3-4 weeks ago, that this was recovery summer. And to add insult to injury, or injured insult, the oil's still gushing in the Gulf. It hasn't gotten any better. It's still being polluted. The chemicals are still going over the populations, and the acid rain is starting to fall, and it's starting to damage crops. And what is that going to do even more to our economy if a food shortage develops because the crops are damaged based upon these items in the Gulf? Then basically you have the demise of our country. When you start to have the food shortages, you have people start to die from these chemicals, and the economy drops off. So I know I put a lot into that segment, or that was a long spin there, but if we look at the middle class, what's that? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll ask the question when you're done.
If we look at the middle class, I think what we have to do now is we have to look at what we can do. And we have to find a way to start to manufacture goods at a great price. Because if you look at, I'm in the construction sales, and I see it every day when I'm selling concrete, steel, just anything that goes into building a school, a university, a big high-rise tower, whatever it is. The goods and services coming from overseas are cheaper, and so we can sell the domestic product, or we can sell the import product. Well, based upon the economic situation, unless if there's a safety issue of it not holding up or not meeting the specs, every contractor will go and use an import product 90% of the time because it's less expensive. What happens to those jobs of people that are making the steel, are making the products, are making the tools here in our country? Well, they're not going to have as many jobs because those jobs are going overseas. Even the people that want to buy that product can't, because they can't afford to because of the cost. Why? Because the taxes that, if anyone owns a business, a small business, I can tell you that my father owns a small business, and the payroll taxes that you have to pay, every tax that you have to pay is horrendous. And then you start to look, well, do I really want to be in business? Because it's so expensive to be in business, where the money that, I believe most businesses are in business to make a profit, to better themselves and their family, and to better their employees. But if you can't generate a profit, or it's so difficult to do business based upon the restrictions placed by state and federal governments, then who wants to be in business? If you have a manufacturing center and you're taxed to death based upon the pollution standards or the controls that are placed upon you, well, then you're saying, you know what? it's not worth doing business. Just like in like California, you probably have most of the strictest guidelines for basically every single thing from the like employees to the pollution, and those businesses decided to do business elsewhere based upon the restrictions and the taxation on the business, and move it overseas, most likely because it's less expensive, where they don't have the restrictions and the taxation. So if you look at everything that's breaking down the middle class, it's being broken down because of the taxation and the restrictions and the policies placed by our government onto the businesses and the corporations, and there's no end in sight. But we stay on the boat, we don't jump off because we're told everything's getting better.
Well, let me ask you this. Besides the fact that they're shipping everything overseas, where do you see immigration playing a role in this, in the demise of the middle class? Is immigration playing a role in it? As far as like the go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think we walk into a sticky subject because 50% of the people listening are going to agree one way, and 50% aren't, depending on their background and their family. I mean, the relation I have, my children are Mexican American, and I actually married a person from like Mexico, and we're no longer together. But the thing that we did was we went about it the legal way with the government process, with filling out all the documentation and going through. I mean, it was a lengthy year-and-a-half long process for the visas, all the way up to the 5 years for citizenship. But we did it the right way, and there's several different ways. I'm going to get back to your point, but just one thing with, and you heard about the border in Arizona. I live in Arizona. I'm here in Arizona right now. What we have is we have a park in like Arizona that borders Mexico and Arizona, and 30 miles inland to Arizona, they have signs up saying that no U.S. citizens or American citizens be warned. You should not travel below these this area because of the drug cartels and the bad people in the area from the border that are coming up. And then you have to ask yourself, well, we're so worried about terrorism in our like airports, and we have all the different checkpoints and things we go through in order to fly on an airplane. Why in the world are we not doing anything on the border when we're allowing American citizens? Basically, we're not allowing them. We're saying you cannot go through this area because most likely you will be killed by someone from another country, but we're not doing anything to protect them. So, and if you go to, I believe it was a week ago, on Outlivesheep on the video section, you'll see some videos of the actual border fence, and basically just that. We're not securing our borders. We have basically a line in the sand drawn where people can just walk across and come into our country at a time. So it contradicts our terrorism policy, or I guess our like anti-terrorism policy, that we aren't doing anything on the border. We will take care of it in the airports and the other ways and at the border crossings, but when it comes to the border, if you're an actual terrorist and you want to get in, I guarantee you, in the border, I mean, I see it all the time, people cross all day long from the border. There's nothing there. There's no fence. They were going to build a fence. They built it basically 25 miles and stop for 5 miles. They built it for 25 miles, stop for 5 miles. So, I mean, there's open gaps. I mean, like anyone can come in. So the way this plays into the middle class and to the economy is that many people from Mexico are coming up and getting fake Social Security numbers, fake passports, driver license, and being employed in the southern states from Texas through California, which does play a role, but because of the it has gotten stricter, especially with this Arizona, the SB 1070. I guess it is scaring them where they're either going back to Mexico or they're going to another state. But it does play into the overall like economic picture. Now, some can argue that, well, we don't want those jobs where we're in the sun, we're doing like the landscaping, or we're doing where a lot of the like illegal immigrants, that's what they do, is they stand on the corner and they beg for work at Home Depot or basically where they can get a buck to be able to provide for their family. But it does
Right.
play into it. But there's many different sides and arguments on both sides that could